Come and see the violence inherent in the system! Help! Help! I'm being repressed!
Let's talk about Bright. Other people have already criticized the movie, and it's a lot easier to criticize than create, so I'm going to focus a little bit more on the divide between the critics and the fans, with a few criticisms added to the end like the nasty aftertaste of a bad burp. What is essentially a buddy cop film, Bright attempts to replicate the genre amalgamation formula recently popularized in mainstream media by shows like True Blood and, to a lesser extent, Buffy and Angel, which I'm just now realizing are all vampire shows. Do vampires exist in Bright? Did we address that? I assume they must. Anyways, starring Will Smith and Joel Edgerton as police officers Ward and Jacoby, Bright has our protagonists on a warrior/escape from New York style adventure to protect a magical wand, which already I'm fully on board for. If you're a fan of Shadowrun, that should appeal to you as well. The wand serves to highlight the position of each race within the hierarchy of their society, while the female elf, Tika, played by Lucy Fry, serves as a stand-in for Lilu from The Fifth Element for the first 2 acts of the movie.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
A good place as any to start with centaurs. Bright implies a deeper sort of racial issue, one that values certain races over others, as neither is going to face any sort of discrimination when seeking employment with the Justice Department. This is also evident during the shooting segment through Elftown, which is only to establish the elves as the equivalent of the 1% in their society, and let you know that regardless of the universe, elves will always have it better than you, except in Dragon Age, where they're more or less like the Scots in Braveheart.
As lord of these lands, I will bless this marriage by taking the bride into my bed on the first night of her union.
Oh, by God, you will not!
Please, my lord. We're celebrating weddings here.
Silence, worm! Grab a whore and have a good time.
Meanwhile, throughout the film, Jacoby is constantly referred to as the diversity hire.
Hey, where's the diversity hire you ride with?
Alluding to a parallel to today's affirmative action movements in the workplace. Yet, similar racial discrimination among humans doesn't seem to exist in the universe of Bright as it does in ours. The film shows people of different ethnicities in positions of power that are usually held by white men in movies. Even the agents from internal affairs that oversee and judge the actions of other officers are played by ethnic actors instead of John C. McGinley.
There are just so very many ways for me to say this to you. Never, not in a million years, absolutely not. No way, Jose, no chance, Lance, yet, negatory, nah, and of course my own personal favorite of all time, man falling off of a cliff. No! Oh, Dr. Cox?
Except in this parallel universe of Bright, Mexicans still get shit for the Alamo.
Hey, don't look at me, man. Mexicans still get shit for the Alamo.
And Mike Myers still decided to make Shrek despite the similarities of ogres to orcs.
So I need you to take your fat, Shrek-looking ass back to your vehicle and drive the home to Fiona, alright?
And what was with the reference to Black Lives Matter?
That's it right there. I'll take the little homie out LAPD style like you do.
Fairy lives don't matter today.
To the Black Lives Matter movement exists in a world where supposed racial equality among humans exists? Or was that replaced with Fairy Lives Matter? Either way seems weirdly dismissive and insensitive to a real issue. This essentially gets to the root of that problem of the divide between fans and critics. Bright only offers a superficial read into racial problems in our society by blaming their society's hatred of the orcs for siding with the Dark Lord over 2 millennia ago, a motivation that feels disingenuous to the viewer, as it replaces and renders irrelevant other causes of racism, such as difference in appearance, cultures, or tradition, or just the general dickheadedness.
Just killed them by the thousands in Russia.
I feel they were trying to draw a parallel to World War II, but ask any modern-day German how much they feel discriminated against for siding with Hitler. Instead, within the context of the Bright universe we're presented, it would have made more sense if the humans had enslaved or persecuted the orcs for hundreds of years. It would have more closely paralleled America's actual history with other races and provided a better context for the similarities of Bright's society with our own. It feels further undercut by the Duroc legend mentioned towards the end of the film.
He was a farmer who changed the world.
Essentially a Christ figure complete with the 2,000-year timeline, he united the 9 armies and defeated the Dark Lord. And as we've established earlier, we're not still hating on the Germans, Yule Boll aside. This lack of depth and complexity in the characters and the story extends to the police officers Ward is forced to gun down in the film as well. While this shootout was beautifully shot, no pun intended, Ward's decision would have carried more weight if these cops were developed characters or if they had any redeemable qualities or scenes with Ward that featured them in a positive light. Instead, these officers are perceived as only two-dimensional, dirty, racist cops because that's easier to process within the film's runtime. but in general, none of the characters are very well developed. Ward starts out not liking orcs and ends the film not liking orcs. Well, it could be argued that by choosing to shoot the officers instead of Jacoby, Ward is assigning value to Jacoby's life. However, earlier in the film, Ward also refuses to lie about Jacoby to get him fired from the force, even though Ward would prefer if Jacoby was gone.
I got a dude in my car. The whole world is watching. All right? I didn't ask for it. I don't want it. But I don't get a vote.
And only agrees to enforced by IA. Think D&D. He's basically lawful neutral to a fault, similar to Picard in Season 1.
Shut up, Wesley!
This is the same reason he chooses his orc partner, Jacoby, over the corrupt human officers. At the end of the film, had it been Ward that had gone back into the burning building for Jacoby instead of the other way around, that would have represented a change in Will Smith's character, as he would be choosing of his own volition and without a gun to his head to save Jacoby's life. Meanwhile, Jacoby, on the other hand, starts out wanting to be a hero cop, but he's not accepted by the other cops, and he's considered an outcast among orc society.
He's not blooded. He's not part of any blooded clan. He's like a finger that got cut off the hand. He's dead to us.
Over the course of the events in the film, Jacoby gains the respect of both, achieving personal goals but not growing as a character. This is similar to a sitcom character's arc. It would have represented personal growth if Jacoby had realized he didn't need the respect of either, which seems to happen at one point in the film as he's about to be shot over the oubliette.
You would have made a great orc. I am a great orc.
Before he reverts to his previous awkward self at the end.
He turned around, sight scene. Four of them, bang, 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 bang.
Let him ask
and that was an angel.
questions.
And all right, and that was.
Bright also seems unsure of what to do with its female characters, Tika and Layla, two of the most powerful characters in the whole film, and the driving force behind why the plot exists at all. While neither of the main female characters are defined by their sexuality, which is reflected in their costume choices, both Tika and Layla are underutilized throughout the film, with neither having very many lines in the script or scenes exploring their relationship. Were they actually sisters, or just sisters in the sense of a secret society? And what caused Tika to betray the Inferni? What could have been explored during the film and brought to a climax during a pivotal moment between the two characters, say during the third act, is sadly never developed, and we're left unaware of what caused the rift between them. There's a few times that we see Tika engage in some form of physical combat, but for the most part, she chooses to hide under a blanket, spaz out, or cling to Jacoby, choosing to play the role of the fool to protect herself and the wand until Ward and Jacoby reveal that they're willing to die to protect the wand from the gang of orcs in the church. Side note, why did the gang of orcs wait to search the cop's bag until after they were done questioning Jacoby? I understand that within the structure of the story, it's to show that Ward and Jacoby are willing to die to protect the wand, making Tika trust them, but it's just that it seems like really inefficient to not search the bag first. And why do the orcs have an oubliette? How does that make any sense? Why do they even need an oubliette? Who do you get to install an oubliette? Let's see, what else? Oh, the lack of wind during the shootout with the gangsters was really distracting.
Sit, I'm out! Butterfingers.
We were doing so good.
I have to shout to be heard in the backseat of my car when the windows are down, but neither Ward nor Jacoby had to shout or raise their voices to be heard by the other, even though they were missing a car door. I could have done without another "We're not so different, you and I" speech between the Fresh Prince and Uncle Owen in the bathroom.
We're not so different, you and I.
Yeah, I don't need another "we're not so different" speech. I get those a lot.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
While Tika was acting unnecessarily crazy, which as we've established is just to protect the wand, but maybe they don't actually have like automatic hand dryers where she's from. Maybe in Brigade 2 we'll get to see a glimpse into her past, showing that the children of the Inferni were raised in isolation, away from modern day bathrooms, with the possibility of a commentary on modern day cultism. But a couple of less action sequences or one less subplot could have freed up some time to have explored the world they're in. The movie only offers a 2-hour glimpse into a larger, potentially very complex world. With the sequel already approved, maybe we'll get to have some of these questions answered. Overall, Bright has the feeling of a missed opportunity. A lot of really cool concepts that never really were fully developed or realized. And as a result of an underdeveloped world, the movie comes across as tone deaf. Then in the end, all the problems really do come back to world building. They didn't build their own world, they just borrowed ours and built their story on top of it. And that's not a good way to tell a fantasy story. There's also an issue with dragons too, halting the progression of technology.
Harold the Black thought this castle would be his legacy. Greatest fortress ever built. Tallest towers, the strongest walls. Look at it now. A blasted ruin. 1 million men could have marched on these walls, and 1 million men would have been repelled. In an attack from the air, the dragon fire, Harren and all his sons roasted alive within these walls.
But I don't really want to get into that, just as a side note. As a result, I'd give it 2 out of 4, because I don't believe in a 1 through 10 system, and I'm going to keep things pretty straightforward here. 4 is a great movie, go see that in theaters. 3 is a movie that actually is pretty good, but you can probably wait till you see it at home. 2 is a movie that you'll probably only like if you like the concept, the theme, or the actors. And 1 is a movie that contributes to the epidemic of the passable movie. Technically, movies that are 2 also contribute to the epidemic. So there you go. 2 out of 4.